everyone, and welcome to the season 2 premiere of the Brewers Spotlight. I'm your host, Ed, and today on the call I have, if you could please introduce yourself.
My name is David Barrett.
Dave, how long have you been brewing and how long have you been a member of Boss?
You know, I was looking before this. I keep everything on calendars, every beer I've ever done. And I couldn't find the very first year. I found a 2016 calendar, and there were still some beers on there that looked a little, more complicated. So it was either January 15 or 14. I want to go with 2015. I think December 2014, January 2015.
Okay, so coming up on 7-8 years here.
Yep.
Cool, very cool. And then how long have you been a part of Boss?
Been a part of Boss a year after that. Probably not even a year after that, because when I started brewing, I wanted to get, I don't know if it's like most of the guys or yourself, but when I started my very first beer, I was hooked. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get this down. I'm gonna nail this. This is fantastic, So I right away went online and looked for a club. I had no idea Boss even existed. I didn't even know there was such thing as brewing clubs. I just Googled it and it came up Brewers of South Suburbia, and I was on the south side, on Homewood. So that's how I joined. I reached out from that point. Went from there.
All right. So you talked about that first beer. What was that first beer? What was it that got you hooked?
So here's what happened. So I was in the craft beer for years. Well, I was drinking craft beer, but prior to that was, imports, I think like most of the people were doing. I first got hooked on Michelob Amber Bock, in the 90s, probably. No, I'm sorry, in the 2000s, early 2000s probably. And it went from there. And then in the, 2010, 11, I don't know, around that time, I think craft beer was just starting to make its way on the scene, and it could have been before that. But I was so into it and going to different breweries, and as they opened, I wanted to learn more about what I was tasting, what the process was. So my boys, for Christmas, gave me a gift certificate to Northern Brewer. And from there, I bought a starter kit, which actually I still use a piece of that equipment that's right down there. It's an 8-gallon pot. I use it just to collect wort with and transfer. But so I bought a starter kit, and it was you had a choice of 2 different beers. One was a brown ale. I don't know what the other one was. And I still have that original recipe. So anyway, it was an extract first with steeping grains. You follow the 1-sheet instructions. But I did buy John Palmer's book, How to Brew, prior to that. So I read that, most of it, the important parts I thought. But I was so into craft beer at the time, that I thought a brown ale, how boring is that, But I know it's a good way to start, but I'm like, that's just a boring beer. So I had the crazy idea of throwing blueberries into this thing. I'm like, a blueberry brown ale. And I remember actually searching the web. I think there were 2 ever brewed. So of course, blueberries don't really go with the brown ale, but I didn't know at the time. I didn't know what flavors blended with what, and what fruits, are better with what beers. Obviously, like wheat beers and different things. But anyway, I brewed the beer. Everything went fine. I transferred into a secondary and put the blueberries in the secondary. I even went as far as, for that first beer, I had a little CO2 tank, and I purged all the oxygen from the secondary tank before I put the beer in there. And, just on everything I was reading and studying at the time. Well, what happened was the yeast that was still in suspension in the secondary kicked off a secondary fermentation, a true secondary fermentation. I got some bubbling activity, but I wasn't educated enough on the process to realize, I guess I knew it was fermenting, but I just thought it was activity for whatever reason. And I didn't leave it sit in there that longer to finish that secondary. And I went and kegged it. I actually kegged my first beer, and it was horrible. As I say, it was a shit beer. But, and really what it was it was yeast forward. It wasn't done fermenting. From the secondary part, the sugars from the blueberries. Yeah, it tasted horrible. And I gave it to people I knew, like, oh yeah, man, this is really good. I'm like, no, it's not really good, but they're being nice. So what I did with that beer was it was so bad that I wound up bottling it. You don't want to throw it away. So I took bombers and I bottled like 10 or 12 bottles, whatever was left in the keg, stuck them down in the basement. 6 or 8 months later, we were up in Michigan at my parents' place on the lake. And by that time I had brewed several batches after the fact, and they were coming out okay. They still weren't great, but they were okay. And my dad had called some of the relatives, on the lake over, and come on over, we're trying David's beer. Well, I had that blueberry brown ale in bottles. And again, it was probably 8 months old at that point. And I had it off to the side, and everybody's tasting the other ones, and everybody, no, this is good, this is good. So they're like, what are those bottles? I said, oh, those are some old, that's the first beer I ever did. They're like, well, open it. I was like, I really didn't want to. But I said, all right, well, I opened it. Well, what do you think happened, right? It finished fermenting in the bottle. It bottle conditioned.
Mm-hmm.
It was fantastic.
Is that right?
I took a sip of it. I was like, what happened? I mean, again, not being educated now and understanding fermentation and time and not knowing at the time what had happened. I couldn't explain it. And I said to my sister, who's a big craft beer drinker, excuse me, I said, Shelly, taste this. She tasted, she's like, oh my God, is that good? It just time and finishing, fermenting out and obviously bottle conditioning. And it was really, really good down the road. So that was my first beer. And obviously we'll never go back to that recipe. Never again.
I don't know. You might have to now. I mean, that sounds...
Yeah.
With a little bit of time, that might be decent. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? All right. So I don't know you for brewing brown ales or fruit beers for that matter. I'm assuming that's not your favorite style to brew. What is it you typically brew now that you're more developed?
Yeah. No. Well, I think it's no surprise. Lagers. All day long. I mean, I love ales, any type of ale really, whether it's a stout or a pale or I love IPAs, but my go-to beer and what I really like drinking are lagers. I have 4 beers on tap right now. 3 of them are lagers. I got a Helles, which I guess we're going to try in a bit. I got a Pilsner. I got a Dunkelsbach, an 8% Dunkelsbach, which has actually turned out really nice. Then the 4th one is a barrel-aged stout. Actually, there's the barrel. There is a bourbon barrel stout that I did. That's on tap as well. But lagers, man, lagers, good, clean, crisp. As Steven Evilhorse says, the beer flavored beer. Always, that's my everyday beer. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it was like, that's a nice shirt, by the way. But the that same style that you brew often is the one you like to drink the most as well.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'll do a variety of beers. I mean, I have 8 taps at my disposal. I don't always have 8 beers, of course, but like in the summer coming up now, I will, because I'm on a lake and friends and family come up and I got neighbors, and I'll have 8 different beers on tap, usually by the 4th of July, weekend. We usually have a little party here. So, I'll at least have an IPA, I'll have the lagers, I'll have an IPA, I'll have maybe a porter. So just something different for everybody.
Mm-hmm. What style would you say, like, you have like no interest in brewing? Are there any styles that are like, I'm good, I don't need to try that?
Yeah, one in particular. Well, anything with lactose in it, right? Any of your milkshake IPAs, even the lactose, the chocolate cake stout. I really have no desire to drink it. Any of those. That lactose, I just think it shouldn't even be in beer. Maybe that's a pretty bold statement, but it's the mouthfeel, the sweetness. I mean, and when you're a lager drinker in particular, whether it's a Pilsner or a Helles, sort of good, clean, refreshing beers, that's such a, difference to, any of that stuff. So that's really, I just won't brew that because I don't have an interest in that. I don't like the flavor of the taste. But really, I know I think you said you just did a triple. At Belgium's, I like the doubles, the triples, even some of the singles, but overall, in general, the Belgian beers, the yeast, forward, clove, banana, so not a big fan. So I won't brew those just because I don't drink them. I brew what I like to drink. So.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Is there a style that you haven't brewed yet that you are interested in, like that you want to try, you just haven't gotten around to it yet?
You know what? Yeah, it's funny. And as I love lagers, I've been doing all German lagers, German Pilsner, the Helles, the Dunkelsbach is a German beer. I'm actually getting ready to do a Czech Pils. So I haven't really got into the Czech side. And, I like Northern German Pils, which are the, a little bit more bitter, bitter up front. But I really got influenced by the brewery I was just in Colorado a few weeks ago with my son, Cohesion. They were an all Czech brewery. And I've had Czech Pilsners, don't get me wrong, they're good. But when I had them there fresh at this brewery, they were fantastic. So that really motivated me. And that's all I've been doing since I've been back is researching Czech Pils and kind of the different recipes and what the grain bills are on those different beers, compared to a German Pils. They are quite, I mean, a German Pilsner, generally you can use 100% Pilsner malt. Whereas the Czech Pils, that's not quite the case. It's about 80% with maybe a little Vienna. And there's some other things that I've been researching, like a Munich, like a light Munich, and maybe a little bit of, some other things. But they're, a bit rounder is how I describe it than the German Pils.
That's a good descriptor.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, I want to see more balance where there is a slight bit of sweetness maybe, but the bitterness is so balanced with it. It's a round, smoother feel than the Northern German Pils, which again, I love those things. Those are a little bit drier and crisper. So anyway, I'm getting ready to do one of those here, actually within the next week, and try to nail that one and enter that one in some.
I'm sure you'll do just fine, knowing your background on these things.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
So what you talked about this brewing and the stuff that you got upcoming here. What is your favorite tool or piece of gear for brewing? Like, do you have a particular piece of gear that you're like, this has made my life so much better, so much easier, makes brew day so much better?
Yeah.
Do you have anything like that?
I don't know if I have one. I mean, I've designed my system. You can see some of it behind me. It's a easy to use setup. There's two things. One is my wort chiller. It is it's a counterflow. So I got it all in line with the pumps. So when it comes through, I think that's really nice. I just like that better than putting the immersion chiller in. And you got to clean that thing a certain way. And I like that counterflow chiller quite a bit. But really, I would probably have to say my main fermenter. It's a Spike, the 14-gallon conical, with the full features that a big, fermenter has at the breweries, where I can draw samples. I can, I can keg on that thing, closed system with CO2 pushing it into the kegs. There's no oxygen, so that's real nice. But the main thing is the yeast. So I do harvest my yeast when I do my lagers. So I do traditionally do it. I'll do a 3 brew pattern, if you want to call it that. So I'll brew my Helles first. I use that Bayern yeast. Then I'll harvest that yeast, and literally within a day after I harvest it, I'll be brewing a Pilsner, reusing and pitching that yeast. And then the third run of that yeast, I can capture it again. It's so easy with the bottom. I can capture it in the jars and store it. I'm only storing it for a day or two at the most. And then I'll do an amber lager, international amber lager. Which the last time I did that the amber one, was it Drunk Monk?
Oh yeah.
I think so. Which one was it? It won gold. It was recently. I don't know. It wasn't this last one. No, it was Spooky Brew, I believe. I don't know. I can't remember. But anyway, that was the third use of that yeast for that amber lager, and the beers turn out so nice. I think
Mhm.
we use it, and then that's it. After the third pitch, I'm done using that yeast. I don't carry it on another time after the amber.
You don't mess with it after that.
No, I mean, I guess you can. Some people say you can get up to 10 maybe, but you got to keep that cycle going, and that's a lot of beer. I mean, I do 10 gallons at a time at least. So although I have plenty
That's
of
a
help
lot.
drinking it, that's what gets to be a lot of beer.
Yeah, for sure. And there's only so many competitions you want to enter too, so that gets pricey.
Yeah. I don't do many of those, quite frankly. I throw some beers in them every once in a while. I didn't do the last Drunk Monk. I couldn't. I was kind of traveling, so I couldn't get in on time. But I think the National Homebrewers, I know this is going to come out later, but I think it opened today. I may throw that Bach in there and maybe my Helles. I've never entered it, the National.
Mhm.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Good luck to you, sir. We'll as this comes out, that might even be about the time we find out. So we'll see where it goes. That'd be fun.
Cool. Yeah.
That'd be fun. So, Dave, like you said, you've been doing all of this for a long time. You went from ales into lagers. You've got all this awesome gear. What would you say to a rookie just starting out? What would you give to what advice would you give to that noob that's just coming into the club for the first time?
I may just say, don't sweat it. Just have fun. I was so anal and so worried about everything when I was first doing it. Everything's got to be clean. Everything has to be sanitized. I probably over sanitize, and even to this day. You're so concerned about doing everything right that it may take away from the fun a little bit. The fun part is after it's fermented and you get to taste it for the first time. But I love the brewing process. I'll take a brewing day of 6 hours or 7 hours and put the music on, and it's your time to yourself. So just enjoy it. Have fun. Don't worry about if something goes wrong, because it will. Things happen. We've all had it happen to us. You get a stuck sparge, or whatever. You might spill something, or you didn't drop the hops in at the time when you exactly need. Whatever may happen, it may happen. So just roll with it. It's just have a good time.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, on that note, I have this wonderful can that was gifted to me here.
Cool.
You're the fanciest brewer because you can your home brews.
Yeah, I'll tell you how that came about though. My son, he got married Memorial weekend of 2021, and he asked me to brew a beer for his wedding. And he's in Phoenix, Arizona, by the way. So I'm like, sure, Kyle. I mean, how do they say no to your kids, right? So I thought, well, how am I going to get this out there? I can't get kegs. I'm flying out there, but I'm not going to bottle all these beers. So I always wanted a canner, and I happened to walk into a homebrew store, and somebody was selling. Actually, I think somebody probably won it. It was an October canner, the double, like they had,
Mhm.
And the price wasn't too bad. And then I negotiated with them a little bit, and I said, I need one. I want one anyway. So here's my perfect excuse to get a canner. And so I canned up 8 cans, 16-ounce cans for my son's wedding. It was a small, intimate wedding. So I put them in its own suitcase and had them all in like memory foam, and they went on the plane out to Phoenix. So that's how I got the canner. That's why you're drinking a lot of the canner now.
That's fun. I like that. And I like this beer. So does your home brewery have a name? Do you actually go by a home brewery name, or?
Jokingly, I guess. My boys named it, actually. I think at the beginning, hey, you got to call your brewery something. And first I thought Skipping Rocks Brewing Company, like, the Flat Rocks.
Yeah.
Here now. Yeah, I thought that's a pretty cool name. Like, that's a list name. They're like, they're like, get him skip. What is that? You know, they started giving me the business, and my son Kyle said, "Dad, you need something strong, something bold." And he was watching some show. He's like Lord. He's like Lord Barrett's Brewing Company. That's it. There you go, Lord Barrett's Brewing Company. So I actually have a chalkboard in the garage, one of those portable ones, and it's on there, Lord Barrett's. So if I have a name, that's it, Lord Barrett's.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, fun with it.
Exactly. And that's the point. That's the point, right?
Mhm.
So as we're drinking this here, and you'll have to pardon my dirty glass. I see a little bit of bubbles here. And this is wonderful. Tell us a little bit about what we're drinking. Talk us through the recipe. And just as a quick plug, again, it's in the book, guys. We have Dave's Hellas Lager in here, scaled up at the 10.5 gallon batch here. So it's your full on recipe. Why don't you talk us through it?
Yeah, well, it's a Munich Helles. You know, I guess Germany's or Munich's everyday table beer, if you want to call it that. Good, clean, refreshing, you know, beer. It is one decoction on this beer. I know Pilsners generally, they do at least two, and I have, but just one decoction on this beer. You could also do it with, you can put melanoid in it, but I put that in the book. So if you don't want to do a decoction, I think it's 3 or 5 ounces of melanoid, kind of get that, you know, decoction type sweetness that you get out of it. So yeah, off the top of my head, man, I mean, it's primarily Pilsner malt. I'd have to look at it. I know you got it there right in front of you.
Oh, all right. I got you. I got you, man. So yeah, Pilsner, you got a little bit of Munich Light, some melanoidin, unless you decoct, because you kind of talk about that too, where you're like, if you're going to decoct it, don't bother with the melanoidin.
Well, you can, you want to take it out because it'll be too sweet. You know, do one or the other. So pull that out of the recipe.
And then hopping, 60-minute edition of Tettnang, and then a 40-minute edition of German Tradition. Now, that's one I've never heard of before. What is Tradition?
Yeah, I like it. It's a little bit like Saaz somewhat. I actually started using it because another brewer, a home brewer, who's now a pro brewer, he kind of turned me onto it. He was doing it for his German beers up in Libertyville, the brewing store up there. Perfect Brewing Supply.
Yeah.
His name escapes me now. He's a good brewer. Anyway, him and I we when I was working, I would be up that way for work at times. So it kind of became my home brew store, and those guys are really good, and they. You know, I like them because if you need 1 ounce of something, you can buy 1 ounce, you know.
Yeah.
And very, very knowledgeable. So we would, you know, trade ideas and brew talk every time I was in there. And he's the one that turned me on to tradition hops, German tradition hops, and he really enjoyed it. I started using them at my house. And it just kind of stuck. I like the way that, you know, bit of the slight spiciness. Very slight.
It is. It's got a nice, like, noble, like I had never heard of it until I looked up the recipe, and then I was like, they'll have to tell me about that because I got nothing. But there is, and because I know Tettnang's pretty muted too, and it gives off kind of like almost like a pear flavor, kind of like real mild, light fruit sweet. And this isn't that. So that's why I was kind of wondering, like, what that's imparting. So that's neat.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, the whole idea behind these beers, and you know this, and you know, the guys in the club, whoever's watching this, I mean, the clean, or the cleanliness, if that's not the right word, but a clean, crisp beer, right? Something that kind of cleans the palate, and you want to come back for more. You want to have more than one, you know. So
Absolutely. And then you ferment this with The
So I use
Omega Bayern strain?
Bayer, correct.
Bayern?
Yep,
Bayern.
yep.
See, I'll get my pronunciations right one of these days.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's what that yeast is a really good clean yeast. I mean, I don't even do a diacetyl with this. So
Okay.
I fermented at 50 degrees all the way through, for 3 weeks. And you don't, it doesn't I know the Pilsner, your quell strain of yeast for your Pilsner, that thing you do have to bump because you get some diacetyl and some other things. But this yeast is so clean, it makes a great lager. So I'll use 2 packs of it and also build a starter. You got to over pitch for lagers all the time because you ferment so low.
Just on that first cycle, like you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean it's I'll build my starters big enough. I got a big 5,000 liter whatever flask that I build.
Those big flasks looking. Yeah.
So, and I use that proper starter all the time instead of I used to use a dry malt extract. The proper starter is a little more expensive, but it's so darn easy.
Yeah.
First
Just pop it
time,
and go.
not messy. Pour your water in with it. Get that starter going in about 10 minutes and let it rip for, day and a half, 2 days, whatever.
Nice.
But anyway, yeah, then I'll pitch it a little bit below 50, maybe 48, 47. And I can get it down that quick with my system. I do have a glycol chiller, so if I can get it in the fermenter at 60, through the counterflow chiller, I can get it down to 48, 47 within 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. So it's really quick. It's nice, to be able to get it down and pitch that yeast, oxygenate, of course, plenty of oxygen, and that's it. You gotta be in a house.
Yeah, and you have an award-winning beer. That's how you make it sound so easy.
It is though, right? I mean, it's really not, it's not that difficult. The recipe I put in the book is, it's exactly what I do. I drop it a degree a day from 50 until I hit like 33 or 34, and then at that point, keg it and hold it there and let it lager. I mean, it does take time. You're not going to turn this beer quick. I mean, if you want to do it right, but it's worth the wait, I think. I mean, I poured this beer kind of before we started, and I still got a little bit of a head still on there. So,
Yep. Patience is definitely a brewer's friend. So
yeah, that's it. So maybe that's a piece of advice you ask for new brewers to be patient. Don't let that first beer ferment all the way. That yeast is still doing things, right? Even though you may not have any activity in that airlock, it's still working.
That's right. And we don't want to add blueberries to this.
Hell no. But I'll tell you, man, all of this too is and learning a lot of this stuff between reading and finding stuff online. I mean, quite frankly, it's the guys in the club, you come to the meetings and you bring your beer and from the beginning, and I think Ed, I probably told you this, but there were a couple of people in particular that I would give my beers to get the feedback. What do you think? What's right? What's wrong? And have thick skin and go, don't be afraid to tell me what the problem with the beer is. And that's the nice thing about the club is, there's so many people that are genuine and they'll give you their honest opinion and advice and tell you what you think. Hey, you may have fermented this too warm. You may have done this. I remember the first Hellas I did, I brought to Brandon, that hailstorm. And everybody else is like, that's a good beer. That's a good beer. I'm like, okay. So I bring it to Brandon. He's like, a little bitter, don't you think? I'm like, so right out of I'm like, I love this guy. I hardly knew him, but he caught it. He was right. I knew there was a little bit too much bitterness of it, but nobody else would say. But that's they'll tell you right off what they think, and you take it from there, and then you keep tweaking it.
Yeah,
there you go.
Was this recipe a constant tweaker? Like, were you regularly changing things on it?
I think 3 or 4 times. I'd have to go back and see the versions that I have on there. I think I am on version 4. More from the hop standpoint than the grain bill. I think I did change the grain bill a little bit on the second version, and then I left it, and then I went to the, the tradition hops after that. So
Right on. Well, as my glass dwindles here, I think we're going to call it a show. This has been your Brewers Spotlight. Again, this is Ed and Dave signing off here. Cheers to everyone. Brew a lager and enjoy the summer.
all right, have a good one.